My name is Carrie McClellan. I'm the Director of Outreach and Community Engagement for ElderHelp. And I am joined here with Jean Alton. I'll do a formal introduction of her in just a moment with Alzheimer's San Diego and today's topic, which is care in the late stage of Alzheimer's disease. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Before I do my formal introduction of Jean, I just wanted to share briefly who ElderHelp is. Some of you might not be familiar with our organization. So we're a local nonprofit. We support older adults who are still living in their own home out in the community. And our goal is to help them maintain independence. Obviously, over time, that changes. And so we do also work with family caregivers to help navigate that journey. We've been supporting services in our community for over 50 years now. And then this is an overview of our programs. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but we offer information and referral services. So for anybody who is looking for resources and trying to get connected, we're always happy to point you in the right direction. We do offer some grocery shopping services. We have a food pantry through our nutrition program. We have a transportation program for more seniors who are out and about and needing to get to medical appointments. Our care coordination program involves social workers who are assessing our clients' needs and also volunteers who can help with a variety of services, including home safety and maintenance. So installing grab bars or making modifications around the home to improve the safety. We also help with friendly visits and home office help. We do have a housing services team that helps with a roommate matching program called Home Share. And then the family caregiver support program is where these webinars are hosted through, and we offer a variety of topics related to being a family caregiver. We don't offer them every month, but I would say either every other month or on a quarterly basis for sure. Many of the topics that we do host through these webinars are in partnership with Alzheimer's San Diego. So we recognize there's so many family caregivers that are caring for a loved one living with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And so their expertise is really valuable for us to bring to the community and to share with all of you the resources and helpful tips that can provide that support for you in that journey. I also did want to mention that we have online courses. There's self-paced tutorials for family caregivers on our website. So if you go to elderhelpofsandiego.org on our family caregiver page of our website, you'll see the different webinar recorded options that we've had in the past. We also have our online courses there, and you have access to all of them just by creating a login. We did also start a new division of ElderHelp, which is called Naviguide San Diego, and that is a subscription-based care management program. So we're helping families navigate even further than just providing information and referral. We can help coordinate services and make sure that people have what they need at different stages. So that's something that is new. And without further ado, I am going to formally introduce Jean Alton, who is here as our speaker. So Jean has several years of experience working with people living with dementia, their care partners, and their families. She has worked in a variety of settings, including memory care, adult day programs, as a support group facilitator, dementia care coach, professional certified geriatric care manager, which is now known as Aging Life Care Professionals, and currently as a dementia educator. Jean has been with Alzheimer's San Diego since 2018, providing both in-person classes and online presentations on many different topics within the areas of dementia. Jean has a bachelor's degree in psychology and recreation therapy for the aging population. She is also a TPA-SNO positive approach to care certified independent trainer. And if you've joined any of the webinars that we have partnered with Alzheimer's San Diego in the past, you have seen Jean and know how important the information is that she shares and provides really good examples for people. So I hope today's topic is helpful for all of you who are joining us today. And again, if you know somebody who is not able to be here but could benefit from the information, please feel free to share the recorded version with them afterwards. So Jean, welcome, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Carrie. It's always such a pleasure for us to work with you and with ElderHelp. And I'm happy to hear about your new program, NaviGuide.
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's have a look at our agenda for today. We have lots to cover. So we're going to talk about the late stage. And so we'll look at some of the changes that are occurring physically and function-wise. We'll spend a little bit of time about how we can connect and communicate with a person in the late stage. It can be especially hard when they are no longer verbal and have become non-responsive, but there's still things that we can do. We'll talk a little bit about comfort care and personal care, then the transitions at the end of life, care planning and grief and coping. So let's dive in. We'll start with some of the physical and functional changes that are occurring in the late stage. And so, you know, oftentimes the question is, well, what is the late stage and how do I know if my person is in the late stage? And, you know, it's different for everybody. Some people can live a long time with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia. Other people, it progresses more quickly. So it's very difficult to predict. There's great variability. So, but generally speaking, when we're talking about stages, we're talking about early, mild, middle, moderate, and what we're talking about here today is late and severe, and moving towards the end stage. So I think when we go through some of the physical changes, that will give you a better idea of, you know, is my person in kind of in the late stages of the dementia that they've been diagnosed with. And so, okay, so these are some of the pretty common changes that we see is, again, limited verbal communication. And in fact, they may no longer be verbal at all, much less responsive to. They're needing 24-hour assistance with all aspects of daily life. And that's going to include, you know, eating and hydration. That's going to include likely wearing incontinence products and needing to be kept clean. And, you know, those aspects of keeping the person clean will extend to oral care and just general body care and skin care in particular. We're also starting to see some difficulty with chewing and swallowing. So it's not uncommon for people in the late stage to begin having difficulties getting things down. They may be starting to choke a little bit, and because some of the food and or hydration it's going down the wrong tube. And so we're starting to see more choking incidences as well too. We absolutely see reduced physical activity and independent mobility. Now, that doesn't mean a person would not be able to move, but it is going to be reduced. And again, based on kind of, I guess, the speed of progression of the disease in the late stage, but also just other health issues and age as well too. Some people who, for example, might have a younger onset Alzheimer's disease diagnosis, their physical bodies beyond the brain are often still pretty healthy. And so they may still be able to, you may still be able to get them transferred into a wheelchair and be able to move them around. There may be some movement there. But by and large, we do see a decrease in the physical activity and the ability to be independently mobile. So let's talk about connecting and communicating, and this I think is really quite important. So we talk about kind of the losses that are occurring when a person is in the later stage of a dementia diagnosis. And I think it's important for us to also focus on the remaining abilities. in the individual who's in the late stage. And I think I would say both just over the course of my career, but also, just researching what other people are doing, what the medical community is saying, and so forth. I think that most of us have agreement that the sense of one's environment, that a person remains somewhat aware of it and somewhat connected to it, and that they're able to respond to sounds, to vocal tone and emotion. And I would say that from personal experience too, not only with family members, but also with clients that I have worked with over the years. And yes, I think there can be a strong connection and response to nonverbal sensory stimulation. So I'm going to tell you a couple of quick stories about nonverbal sensory that I think illustrates how people can be moving into the late stage and no longer verbal, but you can still very much connect with them. And one is a personal story and one is a story about a client I worked with. So I'll tell you about my client who, as she moved into the late stage, she lost her language and she became completely nonverbal. She no longer spoke anymore. But what she did do, and we started doing, her and I together, and it was how we communicated, how we had a conversation, is she was a lady. She was amazing. She had a really fun sense of humor and she liked to laugh and tease a lot. So I would go see her, and she was in a facility, and this was in the late stages. And I would sit with her. If she was up in her chair, then we would sit across from each other at a small table. And if she was in bed, then I would sit beside her and hold her hand. But I made sure we were fairly close and we could see each other's faces. And so then we would just look at each other, and I really made sure, and she was good at this, that we had eye contact. And then she would, or I would, to start the conversation, you folks might laugh at this, is we would start making funny faces at each other. And so she might crinkle her nose up, and then I would go, and then she would look and wink, and then I would smile and go. And so this went on. This is how we communicated with each other. And it was most definitely, in my opinion and experience with it, it was a connection, and it was a deep connection. And I don't know that she actually knew who I was at that point, other than I was trusted and somebody that she liked to be with and wanted to see. And so we'd have this facial expression conversation and using our hands too, just touching. And it was just really lovely. And that was how we stayed connected. My personal story is about my father-in-law, who was in the late stage. And this was not with dementia, it was with a cancer diagnosis. But he was in the late stage of the disease, and the dying process was beginning. And he often was not verbal any longer because he didn't have the strength and the stamina to talk. And so he and I would sit together, in my in-laws had a recliner love seat that, the two chairs, the two sides that you sat in, each had independent controls. And so we would sit together on that with the blanket over us and, put our feet up. And usually we'd be watching sports of some kind, often with the sound muted. And we would just sit there in those chairs and we would hold hands. And I would just look at him and he would look at me. So we weren't talking, but we would just kind of check in with each other by looking. But the other thing that we did was holding hands. I would squeeze his hand 1, 2, 3 times, and he would squeeze back 1, 2, 3 times. I don't know if you can guess what that little communication was about, but I'm going to tell you. It was, I love you. He said, I love you. And so that was absolute connection with my father-in-law, who was very dear to me. And so I think it's something that can happen. And sometimes we have to work a little bit to kind of figure out how can I connect? What is that connection going to be? So keep those things in mind. So let's look at how maybe we can connect. So I think all of these areas, the sensory areas, are great ways to pursue and establish that connection. Absolutely touch, which I've explained, sight, and, with just getting each other's eye and that nonverbal communication. People in the late stages of dementia remain remarkably adept at looking at and understanding and comprehending facial expressions, also tone. Again, we mentioned that earlier, tone of voice. They remain remarkably adept at being able to take information in through these senses. And so I think it's really good for us to lean on our senses to help us with the connection. I think smell can oftentimes be a good way of connecting. Now, sometimes it might be with a scented lotion of some kind that feels good on the skin. So it's kind of multi-sensory, right? So you're getting some good smells, but you're also touching and maybe looking at each other. So it's kind of a little bit, I think, more than just putting some nice lotion on mom's hand. But I think, think about other smells that we could do. And, well, this will explain itself, because what I always think about for a really good smell in my world is fresh baked chocolate chip cookies. And if I smelled those, I think even if I was in the end stage, I think I would respond. And I just think, what if somebody took a freshly baked cookie that's still warm and kind of held it up under my nose and I could smell it, and then maybe take a little tiny crumble of the cookie that has a chocolate chip in it and let me taste that. And I think that would make me really happy. The other thing that I love the smell of is good coffee. And I know lots of people that do. So you think about when we smell that coffee brewing in the morning. So we all have different things that we respond to. So think about your person with dementia, and what are the tastes and the sights and the sounds that they respond to. Even for people who are not taking in hardly any food at all anymore, or hardly any hydration liquids of any kind, some little sips of things. If somebody gave me a little sip of coffee, I would be happy with that. Ginger ale I like as well too. And just a little sip, just enough to wet my mouth and give me a taste, I think would be good. Now sound, just think of the vast array of things we can do with the sense of sound. And of course, music always comes to mind. And we all respond to different kinds of music. And your person with dementia and what kind of music they respond to. And so is that something that you could put on some music? The other thing is just think about even, when you go to a spa and they have spa music on, or they have the sounds of rain, gentle rain coming down in a forest. So all of these nature sounds that can be really, really lovely to listen to as well. And, there's also just funny things. So, I'm going to use this example because I loved this show. It does give away some of my age here, but that's okay. I love Lucy. And for to me, that show, Lucille Ball, was, a lot of it was just visual. You know, remember when she and Vivian are in the chocolate factory and they're eating chocolates, and the, you know, the conveyor belt with the chocolates on it is going by faster and faster, and the ladies can't keep up, so they keep popping the chocolates in their mouths. I mean, that is just a visual laugh there. But the other thing is, you know, you hear the laugh tracks there, and it just even hearing them talking. So if there's some kind of favorite show that has laughter and fun stuff in it, think about what you could put on there. And I also just think, you know, listening to kids talking can be something that can really kind of touch us in some ways. It's funny, but it's also sweet, and can really just bring a smile to our face. So just even putting some of those things on. Maybe the person's eyes are closed and they don't watch it, but let's make the assumption that they can hear it and that it's sweet and cute and funny to them as well too. So those are some ideas for making that connection. So do keep in mind that people in the late stage can still experience a wide range of emotions. And that can be everything from happiness, contentment, feeling that sense of love and being loved. It can also be some fear, being scared. It can be needing reassurance, feeling anxious. And it can be all sorts of other things too, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But, you know, just think, if you're feeling uncomfortable and unhappy, and how that clouds our mood, and you know, we're just like, this isn't the situation, there's something about it isn't good, I need this to change, excuse me. But if you're in the late stage and you can't initiate the change yourself, and then you need to have somebody do that for you. So remember that, keep that in mind. And again, people in the late stage can enjoy and respond to humor and laughter. And there's all sorts of funny things out there that we can definitely be playing, having the soundtrack in the background. And what we want to do as the individuals who are caregiving for somebody who's in the late stage is focus on creating these moments rather than creating memories. So I guess what I'm saying there is that, you know, let's be very present in the moment and do some of our grieving that we're already doing later on, which is totally appropriate to be grieving, but in that moment, let's just be very present and to be connected. Yep, thank you. Communication strategies. Okay, so when we are using verbal language with people, and we can still use verbal language with people even if they're not responding, and in fact, that's probably a good idea to do that. Keep your speech slow and clear and use shorter sentences or phrases. And again, just understand they may be responsive or they may not be, but whether we see a response or not, you know, let's keep communicating with these folks, letting them know, you know, I come in the room and maybe my person that I'm caring for's eyes are closed and often seems like he or she is not kind of with us anymore. But I'm still going to say, let's say, Mom, hi, Mom, it's Jean, your favorite daughter. I'm here. I love you. Love you so much. I'm going to sit with you here for a little while. And then maybe I go on to tell her a little bit about what's going on in my life, or, you know, what the kids are up to, or the latest hijinks the dogs got into. you know, I could keep up a steady flow of words. Again, I mean, I could just keep talking and talking and just kind of keep that going. If I am trying to look for responses, though, then I want to start using less words. And so then that would be where I might just say, it's Jean, your daughter who loves you. I'm going to sit with you, rather than all the other information coming out. So use pictures, photos, food, music, all those things to help connect, just as we talked about. Be mindful of your physical approach. And I think I kind of illustrated that with my example is, you know, I can't make the assumption that the person with dementia knows that I have just entered the room, or that they know it's me, or they even know who I am. So I want to say these things out loud. I want to tell them who I am and what's going on. If I'm a professional that's going to help them, then I might just say, I'm your care aide today. My name is Jean. I'm your care aide today. I'm going to help you get clean. And before I start flipping the bed covers back or starting to help them to roll over so I can change some incontinence pads, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to take the blankets off. Don't worry, it won't be long. And then I'll get you warm again. I'm going to put a fresh pad underneath you. I'm going to take a warm washcloth and give you a little clean, you know, so you want to tell them what it is you're going to do before you do it. So I just think it's a generally good approach anyways, because it is honoring dignity, and, you know, none of us wants physical things done to us that without being told about it. And, you know, just think, if the person is in there and they're hearing you, and perhaps they are, and understanding what you're saying, but they're not able to respond anymore. So, but they know what you're going to do, versus the situation where you're not telling them what's going on, and all of a sudden somebody rolls me over and exposes me, and now they're cleaning around my private areas. That could be quite disturbing. So think about that, and then just watch and listen for these nonverbal or behavioral expressions, particularly the face, but also the hands and arms, because sometimes if people aren't happy with what's going on, they will start to kind of use the arms or the hands to protect themselves. And we might not recognize that initially. So think about that. That's some communication strategies. Comfort and personal care. Let's move on to that. So I'm not going to spend much time on this, but what I do want you to be aware of, and you can call Alzheimer's San Diego for more information on this, and you can call ElderHelp as well too, to get information on palliative care, and then we'll talk about hospice care in a minute. And just understand that this is some specialized medical care. It is addressing pain and suffering, and that can be, you know, emotional and mental pain and suffering in addition to physical. And palliative care is perfectly fine at any age and any stage in any serious illness. The kind of special thing about palliative care is that it may be provided along with curative treatment. Now, we don't have curative treatment for Alzheimer's disease and many types of dementias, but do understand that a person with Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia can be on palliative care prior to going on to hospice care. It's also specialized medical care. There we go. And it's interdisciplinary, and, you know, so there's a bunch of different people that are on your hospice care team. It it will be delivered for wherever the person lives, the patient. So that could be at home, that could be in a care facility, that could be all sorts of different places. And, you know, one of the big differences for hospice care from palliative care is that you're no longer pursuing curative treatment. If it's something, an illness that has treatments that can be done. So for example, a cancer. And in addition to that, the person does need to be, again, it's a Medicare benefit that a doctor would sign off on and agree that the person is in their, likely to be in their last 6 months of life. So, and again, don't wait to see if somebody suggests hospice care. Ask the questions long before, because people can be on hospice for a long time. And so this again is a Medicare benefit. So those, just be aware of these special areas of care that are very applicable in the late stage and can really enhance the quality of life for the person with dementia and family members too. Let's see if there it is. It's going to cooperate. So addressing needs. So understand that behavior is usually a form of nonverbal expression. So look for those nonverbal communications, changing facial expressions, repetitive movements. So we're not going to rely on them to tell us verbally what they need. So we need to kind of try and figure it out. So, you know, if you're seeing grimacing or let me see, what else? Any kind of like, what is the person trying to say? Well, I think we'd all agree that a grimace is usually, or a frown is usually going to mean something unpleasant. Perhaps it's pain. Perhaps it's being uncomfortable, needing movement. But it might also be something like being thirsty or feeling hungry, or maybe the sense that I think I need to be cleaned up because, you know, my bowels have let go. So, because sometimes people are aware of that. So just be watching for those things, and you know, then we can do things like we can offer a little sip of water or offer a little bite of yogurt. We can check and see, are they clean? We can move them. There's also, you know, there's things that we can do, and then just be watching to see, does that help settle the person down? If you see any sudden changes, then share the concerns with the health professionals and right away, because that might be indicating that something else is going on. Maybe an infection has taken hold or something like that. And it might be something where they can make the person feel more comfortable with whatever medications or other solutions that are at hand. So get your help and have a backup plan. It's really important and good to be supported and to be able to share the responsibility of caring for a person in the late stage with others, and oftentimes other professionals, again, through hospice and palliative care. And so I think we'll talk quick about unmet needs. So again, hunger, thirst, the need to eliminate. Maybe I feel the need to urinate, and you know, maybe I'm not aware that I actually have a pad underneath me, and it's okay for me to let go. You know, sometimes people still have the ability to control the need to eliminate, and so they do want to get up and perhaps be placed on a bedside commode. So we need to think about those things too. Pain, discomfort, and need for movement. So these are all things people in the late stage can and do experience. And they also have changing sleep and wake cycles. And so we have to be able to kind of identify that and go with it, be flexible. Folks in the late stage can still be bored or feel isolated, and then that's when we need to do things like put the music on or put I Love Lucy on or read to them or tell them a story or whatever it might be. And then there's the personal comfort needs. And by that, I mean, I have long said, and Carrie knows this, I say it in actually a few of our classes, a quality of life thing for me if I do get to a point in my life where I am in a late stage of an illness and starting the dying process. So if it's not a sudden death, what I would really, really want, and people who know me and care about me know this, is ideally to have a therapy dog on the bed with me, visiting on a regular basis. And when the real dog can't be there, then give me some a stuffed animal dog, preferably a golden retriever that's nice and soft and feels good to the touch, that you can tuck under my arm or put on my tummy or my chest. And that's going to be a comfort for me. I have a girlfriend that has always said she's somebody who, and this is kind of funny, but it's very illustrative. She is somebody who can't stand to have socks on her feet at night. And so she has long said that if she's in the late stage of an illness and dying, that if anybody were to feel her feet, they would likely feel cold. But if you put socks on her, she said, and if she has dementia, she said, you're going to have a combative and upset dementia patient on your hands. So it's important for us to know the personal comfort needs of the folks that we care for and to respect those. So keep those things in mind. Socks or no socks. There we go. So movement and motion needs to continue even through the late stage in the dying process. Everybody needs it. It's essential for comfort and well-being. And so for people who are not able to move themselves around or who have very limited mobility, we do need to reposition them every couple of hours. And the reason for that is the skin can start to break down, particularly over the bony areas. And so the places where we tend to see that more than others is on the heels of the feet, the elbows, and the buttocks or the lower back. And so we do need to keep these folks moving and getting them on their sides, maybe propped up by pillows, getting them positioning, getting the bed up some and down later, just getting that body moving around some. And so we do want to watch for skin breakdown, and that can happen fairly quickly. Be realistic in terms of, what the movement and motion can be for that person's level of functioning. And you can use movement and motion for connection too. So maybe, and I have done this for a person who's non-responsive and nonverbal anymore, very limited physical mobility. I maybe take their leg and just gently bend their knee for them so that we can bring the lower leg up a little bit and then just gently pull it out, just almost like a cycling movement, but very gentle and very slow. This to help get some movement in those lower limbs. So those are some of the things we can do. And the same with arms. We can gently move arms back and forth, hands open and close. And, it's skin to skin touch and it feels good. And again, movement and motion are essential even in the late stages. Adaptive supplies. So there's all sorts of things out there that can help. There's gait belts that help with mobility, recliners, lift chairs, all sorts of bathroom accoutrements like shower chairs, raised toilet seats, bedside commodes, all sorts of different mattresses they have nowadays in order to assist just with comfort and also to minimize and or decrease the risk of skin breakdown. And they can be very, very comfortable, trust me. So where do we get these things? Often they're covered by Medicare, so it's always good if you need this type of equipment to ask for it from the doctor or the hospice care team or whoever it is. And if it's a physician referral, it would likely be covered by Medicare. We can also get these products and devices at home health care stores, through home health care, and at medical supply stores. So keep that in mind. So transitions at the end of life. So let's just talk about kind of what to expect at the very end of life, the very end of the late stage, when the dying process has started. So we're going to see more sleeping than wakefulness, and we're going to continue to see more difficulty with swallowing and more choking episodes. People will just slowly start to refuse food and hydration, but that may not happen right away. I am reminded often of a gentleman, a client that I had, he was dying, and he actually had stopped eating. He was still taking liquid, but he'd stopped eating. And he was in a care facility, and one day, and I happened to be visiting him at the time, and it was, I guess it must have been breakfast, because he had a shared room with another individual, and they brought in that person's breakfast, and there were fried eggs, and they were freshly fried. And my gentleman kind of roused, and he said, "Are there fried eggs?" And then I said, "Yes. Would you like one?" And he said, "Yes." And so the kitchen did up a quick fried egg for him, over easy, and we cut it up, and it was still warm, and he could smell it, fried egg. And he very happily ate that fried egg. So he did eat a little bit more for a little bit period of time. And, we just happened upon a food that appealed to him and that he enjoyed and that was easy for him to eat. So we do have altered communications at this time, but that can be interesting because it's not, I've certainly seen in different instances, people who kind of rally and their communication gets better, or they seem kind of more aware or brighter or whatever it might be, and then, fairly quickly go back to the altered communications and, ultimately pass away, die. So often people will have what we call contractures. And just again, as the dying process is occurring and body systems are starting to shut down, it's literally contracting, okay? So arms, hands, things come in like this, and the legs come up, kind of more fetal position. And they can be very stiff. It can be very difficult to try and release that contracture. And we absolutely can't force it. I mean, if we're able to slowly and gently maybe get a warm washcloth or a warm, little heating pad or something to warm up the hands a little bit and start just gently massaging to see if they'll loosen up a little bit. And we can try and do the same with the arms and legs. But if those contractures are really rigid, and we don't want to force that because we will cause them pain. So we can often expect that. Not all the time, but often. And the next one. The very end of life, there is no intake of food or liquids, and people really are minimally responsive, if at all. We do see cold hands and feet, but again, if it's my friend, don't put socks on her feet. And that's common, and really it's not at this point, at the end of life, it's not something to worry about because they're likely not experiencing feeling that cold and discomfort. We see changes in skin color starting. We may see kind of what I often describe as a more mottled skin coloring of the skin, particularly in the limbs. So, and then we see changes in breathing. So the breathing becomes much more kind of random in that we may hear some fast breathing, and then they may stop breathing for a little period of time, and you think, oh my gosh, is this it? Have they died? And then and then it goes back to kind of more normal. So it starts to get really variable, and when you first experience this, it can sometimes be kind of alarming and startling because you're asking yourself, is this the death that's happening or not? But it is something that is happening very much at the end of life. And so after a death, obviously we all have different instructions as to how we want our body, our remains handled after a death, and maybe it's organ donation, or maybe we want a funeral, or maybe we want cremation. Everybody's got a different plan. So we're going to follow those instructions. And, we don't, just keep in mind that the person's body does not need to go out to the funeral home right now. If a caregiver or family members wanted to sit with the body and the person for a while, that's fine. And you can do that. You want to be contacting, obviously, the key people in your life, family, friends, and supports. And not in that moment, for sure, but over the next few days, you're going to have to be collecting important documents. And it's really good if you actually have all that stuff done beforehand, because I think for many of us, when we're kind of in the throes of grief, we just don't think as clearly. So collect those important documents ahead of time. And then we are going to have to be busy notifying banks, insurance, Social Security, all sorts of other key contacts. And there's lots of information available to kind of help you during a death, like what are the things I need to think about and get done. And I'll tell you, actually, a lot of the funeral homes have booklets, guidelines in terms of what to do. Clearly they're marketing their own company or organization, but they can be really helpful, these kind of checklists about what do I need to do, what do I need to think about. Again, because it can be hard to think well and kind of remember everything that we need to when we're in the throes of grief. So care planning, let's just talk about that briefly. So these are, I say briefly, but look, these are really, really important things to talk about, and they need to be talked about long before death occurs, and they need to be revisited on a regular basis. So do I want CPR or not? So if my heart stops, do I want to be resuscitated or not? Do I want artificial nutrition or hydration? Meaning artificial is going to mean like a feeding tube. Hydration is going to be IV fluids. If I get sick, let's say because I'm choking more and more and I'm taking food and water into my lungs, I develop pneumonia. And if I'm in the end stages of a dementia, do I want them to use antibiotics on me or not, or just let me go? And then hospitalizations. Is the person going to be better off in the hospital or better off where they are at home or with hospice care? And, we need to revisit these things because, my juncture of life right now, I'm 62, and I do want CPR, and I do want artificial nutrition or hydration and antibiotics and hospitalizations. If I'm age 82, and I have early Alzheimer's disease, I'm quite sure at age 82 that I'll be saying, you know, when I'm still have capacity to do so, I'll be changing my directives and saying no CPR, no nutrition or hydration, no antibiotics, and no hospitalizations. So these are important discussions. And, you know, obviously when we're talking about dementia, these discussions need to be had when a person is still able, has capacity and is able to make these decisions for themselves and use, you know, good judgment and good executive function. So very important. So these are just some care planning resources for you. So, you know, lots of families and lots of people struggle with how do we talk about these things. Death makes lots of people uncomfortable. So if that's you, you know, it's very common, nothing to be, you know, ashamed of or worried about in any way. And there's all sorts of different tools that we can use that help in this discussion. And these are some of the ones that I really like. 5wishes.org. I actually have a booklet handy here. Oops, not that. And it's my wish for the person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't, the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want, how comfortable I want to be, how I want people to treat me, and what I want my loved ones to know. And it actually, you can fill it out. And there's lots of kind of like discussion points in here. So if you fill it out together, let's say as a couple or as family members, you can all sit around and fill these booklets out together and talk about these decisions and let people know what your decisions are and why they're important to you and who you want to be your advocate and spokesperson when you're not able to be the voice for yourself. Prepareforyourcare.org is another one very similar to 5 Wishes, and same for caringcommunity.org. This is all tools that will take you through the often difficult to discuss conversation about dying and advance directives and what I want for the end of my life. Now, we can't just talk about these things though, right? We need to have them documented, and we need to have those documents given to the people who we're naming as our powers of attorney so that everybody knows. So if I have advanced directives, but it's in my safe in my house somewhere and nobody knows about it, it's not going to do me a lot of good, right? I need to make sure that my power of attorney has a copy, and you know, probably some other family members as well too. So we need to get them documented. That's advanced directives, naming your power of attorney, and oops, looks like I forgot a little thing around the post there. The physician orders for life-sustaining treatment form. That's one to discuss with your doctor, and that's not something that we complete way long before death. So for sure, you can talk to your doctor about the POLST form. Coping and grief. All right, let's dive into that. So clearly grief is to be expected, and we all grieve in different ways, in different amounts, in different intensities, and it is to be expected. And so there's no one right way or no one wrong way to grieve. It does occur at every stage. And with dementia, what we often talk about is ambiguous loss. So meaning when a person is both here and absent. And probably a majority of our families we work with experience ambiguous loss because as the person's memory is eroding and as their kind of the person who they were is kind of disappearing a little bit at a time, then we can definitely look at that as being, you know, he's here in front of me, but that's not the same man that I married however many years ago. And so the grieving starts long before death when we're talking about dementias. And it's a different kind of grief then that can go on for a long time before there's actually end of life. Obviously, grief presents in all sorts of different ways. And, again, there's no right way or wrong way, and we can't make assumptions about expectations either. It's different for everybody. So let's see the next slide. There's no universal experience or timeline, which we've just said. And again, release yourself of expectations, both yours and others. And I think some of the best things we can do for people who are grieving is, again, to just be present and allow them to experience the grief the way that they are experiencing it. Don't judge. It's probably better if we maybe don't go in with a lot of suggestions for how to get over this. I don't know if you've ever had those words used to any of you in a grief situation, but I have. And truthfully, it's actually quite offensive. So get over it. No, I'm not going to get over it. I loved this person tremendous amount. We had a really good relationship. So that is going to stay with me forever, whoever that person is. So, and for you yourself experiencing it, just let yourself feel it fully, at least some of the time. It's okay to have moments where we just sit and sob. And just kind of let that flood of emotions come forth from us. Now, we probably don't want to be doing that all the time because, first of all, it's exhausting. It is cathartic, I think, but, we do have to allow our brains to take a break from the grieving process and from the sadness of it and the bewilderment of it. So it's okay to have those moments of sobbing, but then we also need to think about the things we can do that is going to bring some light and laughter and love to our hearts. So identify the support you need. And again, it's always good to have supports around you. And frankly, I think this is good throughout life because there's lots of situations in life where we need to have our people around us, our team, the ones who care about us and love us and want the absolute best for us. So identify your supports. And then this is where, after you've had that outpouring of grief, you want to nurture yourself. So yeah, turn on your favorite music. Eat all the chocolate. I think that's a very good suggestion. Organize the things that are important to you. When I've been having personal moments of grief, I found that actually one thing that I did, this was about a year ago, a dear lifelong friend of ours died unexpectedly. And it was shocking and upsetting and sad, very sad. And I definitely did some sobbing. And after the first big sob, I went and got out some old photo albums and photographs and started going through them to look for pictures of this friend and pictures of us all together, doing the things we all love to do that formed that strong basis for our friendship over the course of a lifetime. So maybe not the right time to organize the junk drawer, unless you find that really actually therapeutic, because it's requires your brain to kind of shift into neutral and you just go through things. So there, who am I to say that organizing the junk drawer isn't a good thing? Whatever it is, that's going to kind of make you feel better. Sit in a warm patch of sunshine, warm sunshine, have coffee with a friend, be gentle with yourself. I love all of these. I might put in there too, have a nice warm bubble bath with pretty smelling candles around. And, you know, maybe you take your book in with you too. So find the joy, do the things that nurture you. And you can still go on experiencing your grief. And so I think that is going to wrap us up. So Alzheimer's San Diego, we're a local nonprofit organization. And so all of the fundraising we do, which by the way, we're doing one of our big fundraisers this weekend, our Walk for Alls in Balboa Park, Saturday morning. I will be there at 6 a.m. If you're interested or would like to register or participate and maybe help us with a little bit of fundraising, you go on our website and you'll find out all about it. And you can just show up day of walk and register and participate. It's a 5K walk. So what is that? Just over 3 miles? No, it's not even 3 miles. I don't remember what the transition is. It's 5 kilometers. It's not very long. And you can walk it. And you can bring pets and you can bring kids. And, you know, a lot of people come actually with family members who have dementia, who are likely to be in wheelchairs for the walk. So you see it all. And we have a dog Halloween costume contest too. So that's always fun. And there will be coffee and there will be fruit and sometimes muffins and stuff like that. We kind of have a bit of a resource fair as well too, in addition to our own table and information, which is where I'll be. So anyways, that's a little shout out for our Walk for Alls. But the important thing behind that is all the money that we fundraise stays here in San Diego, and it goes to support these programs and services, all of which are at no cost to families. So we have lots of support groups. We have a respite program in Alls Companions, social activities and outings. We do memory screenings. I'll tell you all about clinical trials here in San Diego County. We have another volunteer program to support people living alone in the community with memory loss, dementia of some kind. And we have a team of supportive services, our dementia coaches, who answer the phones Monday to Friday during normal business hours. And I'll tell you, we really do have a wealth of information at our fingertips. And whatever it is you're looking for, information, resources, support, whatever it is, there's a pretty high likelihood that we can help you out with that. And that's what we're here for, folks, is for the community, the families here in San Diego County that are dealing with memory loss issues and dementias of some kind and Alzheimer's disease, to lean on us. That's what we're here for. So please do contact us. And so that's what I have for you today. It's care in the late stages it's a heavy class. I think it's fair to say that. And sometimes people just need time to process a little and think about things before they kind of are able to come up with what their questions are. But we do have a few minutes here. If there is any questions, you can put that in chat and send that to Carrie, and she will tell me what those questions are. So I hope this has been helpful.
Thank you so much, Jean. Always a pleasure to have you. And yes, it definitely was a heavier topic today, but I think that the important pieces that you shared are really valuable for people who are here, and hopefully we can share it with others as well. I always appreciate how you go back to the person and encourage people to think of what works for them or what interests them, and
Yeah.
you know, make those moments special. So I always appreciate that you kind of bring it back to that, and providing all of those examples.
If nothing else, I hope some of you, and maybe even all of you, go back to your lives and the people that are in your lives and have that socks or no socks conversation.
Yeah, I know. And Alzheimer's San Diego is a really great resource. So I know Jean shared about their programs. I refer to them weekly, if not, you know, multiple times every week. They just have a really good variety of services to offer and education. So I encourage you to check out their website and reach out to them directly if you do have specific questions. We did have a couple of questions.
I'm just going to also throw that back to you, Carrie, and say, you know, folks, ElderHelp is a great organization too, and such a vast array of programs and services. And for sure, you know, actually contact both of our organizations. And, you know, we offer help in some different ways and areas too.
Yeah.
So it's not, don't consider ourselves competitors, rather we're collaborators.
Yeah, definitely, which I always appreciate. And we did have a couple of questions come through. So I let them know I would share at the end. So the first question, Jean, this person's father was only recently diagnosed, but they fear that he's already in the middle stage. And so the question is, how do I help him navigate his hygiene? It sounds like he has very disordered hygiene that ended up causing a UTI and hospitalization.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. I'll tell you, actually, what I think would be best is if you contact us, call us, and talk to one of our dementia coaches, because they can walk you through some steps that you can take to better manage the hygiene, hopefully better manage the hygiene, and to help him to do that. And tip sheets, you know, they can send you tip sheets and just give you all sorts of ideas. So that's what I would say is call us. We do have a class that is called Skills Clinic, Bathing and Grooming. So you might want to look ahead on our website to see when that's happening next. And if it's a class, in-person class isn't happening anytime soon, then look in our webinar library for a previously recorded version of it. So, but for sure call us, because we've got loads of information on that topic area.
That's a great suggestion. And I'll make sure to include Alzheimer's San Diego's contact information in my follow-up email. So if you didn't jot it down, you will get it. And then another question that came in, it sounds like this person is having some choking incidences, and so they're frightened when that is happening, and so the family member is asking what can be done to manage that situation. Is there a medication that helps? Would morphine be recommended, maybe for that calming? I'm not sure if you have any suggestions on that regard.
Yeah, so I think what would be a really good idea here is, you know, get on the phone to the doctor, make sure the primary care physician is aware of these choking incidences. And the doctor may, and in fact, this might be something that you bring up as a suggestion yourself, is have, it would be a occupational therapist could do a swallowing assessment to see if, you know, what might help. And so, for example, there's thickeners that can be added to liquids to make it easier to swallow and makes it go down easier. But we don't want to just kind of do that independently. You might think, oh, well, I'll just add cornstarch to some stuff. Well, it's best to get a swallowing assessment, because there's so many different, you know, it's actually a pretty complex function, swallowing is. And the occupational therapists are the ones to best see what's going on. You know, they might be pocketing food. Maybe there is some mucus buildup. You know, we need to have the professionals come in to see, is there a medical condition going on, or is this a functional situation? What is happening? And then to make the recommendations from there. So get on the phone to the doctor. That's the first step.
Thank you. Great suggestions there. And then the last question that came in is if this presentation is offered in Spanish. So I don't know if you have any recorded versions of this webinar in Spanish or this topic.
We don't, but I certainly will pass on that question and comment to the Director of Education, because, you know, I mean, we do have Spanish classes. Let me just say that. But I'm not sure we have this one translated into Spanish as yet. But if people are requesting it, then, you know, that's what we do, is we respond. So I definitely will take that question and comment back to the Education Department.
Great, sounds good. And there was a follow-up question about sharing the slides. And yes, we will share a PDF version of the PowerPoint slides as well. So if that's helpful for you to pass along, in the meantime, that will come in the follow-up email that I share with you all today.
Yeah. Well, thank you very
Wonderful.
much, Carrie and ElderHelp and everybody who's attended here today. So wish all of you a
Wonderful.
good rest
Thank
of
you
the
so
day,
much,
enjoy
Jean.
the sunshine, and maybe
Yeah,
I'll see you
enjoy the
on
sunshine.
a walk.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much, Jean, and look for that follow-up email from me, everybody. And if you have further questions, you'll be able to reach out then. So hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining.
Take care, guys.